It's a fisheye. It just looks like you're looking through the apartment.
Like, all right, so now?
You're ready.
Now we're ready. Okay. Hi there, my Wonderlings, and welcome back for another episode of Welcome to Wonderland. I'm really excited because today I have with me John Kocsis Jr., the voice of the Columbia Fireflies, author of Play-by-Play from the Minors, profiles of baseball broadcasters from Scranton to Yakima, and clutch bowler, if I'm saying so myself. So, welcome, John.
Well, thank you for the introduction and for overestimating my bowling skills to everyone watching.
So, tell us this episode of Welcome to Wonderland, we're going to talk about sports broadcasting, and I've got some questions that my listeners have wondered about what it's like to be the voice of a sports team. So before we get into all that, tell us a little about yourself first.
Yeah, so I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio in the late 90s, and I was left-handed, so I wanted to be Jim Thome for the longest time, and I think it was about 4th or 5th grade when I realized I wasn't going to hit 600 home runs in Major League Baseball, and that journey led me to where we are today, just talking about baseball for people to listen to and telling the stories of all the people on the field.
Excellent. And we'll actually come back to that because one of the questions is a little bit about that. In Welcome to Wonderland, I don't know if you ever listened to it, but what we do is I kind of take a topic, I explore things that people may wonder about it, and then put it out into the world. And these interview type ones, I've done in a couple of different ways, but likely what I'll do is I will still go back and do some research on sports broadcasting and the history of sports broadcasting and all of that, and splice it all together for this episode. A quick overview of sports broadcasting. The first sports broadcast is likely the 1899 America's Cup broadcast by Marconi, can't say that first name, from New York Harbor. And here are some of the other early milestones. 1911 was the first pre-recorded sportscast in Kansas, where a group recreated football plays based on telegraph. 1921, the first broadcast of a sporting event, a 10-round boxing match between Dundee and Johnny Ray at Pittsburgh's Motor Square Garden. 1939, the first live broadcast in the United States, a college baseball game between Princeton Tigers and Columbia Lions, was on NBC. And then in 2018, John Kocsis Jr. starts calling minor league baseball games.
For the West Virginia Power, yeah.
So that brings us up to the history. Obviously, by the time you were doing it, I said early on they started out recreating telegraphs, and we're just basically broadcasting that over radio. And now, and we'll get into a little more, but it's things like webcast and streaming and all of that. So it's an entirely different world now.
And if it's fun, it's kind of funny that you mentioned that too, because Al Michaels, who started off at the University of Hawaii, actually did those broadcast recreations when he was there quite a bit. So he was going through the telegraph and just doing that. And there are some people in minor league baseball like Jesse Goldberg-Strassler with the Lansing Lugnuts who pay tribute to those people each year and do one rebroadcast game each year. So something that is actually still idolized a little bit, still looked at a little bit. And
I did not know that.
There are certainly broadcasters who, although Al Michaels has been doing it forever since Miracle on Ice, who are still active, who had to start off doing that in their career.
You are a plethora of knowledge. I wasn't expecting you. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get into some of the questions because I know we're pressed on time. Guys, we are here at Sakura Park, which was the 16 ballpark of the year. It's the world's happiest place. Some people say it's Disney, but it's not. It's right here in Columbia, South Carolina. But it's also when they do their Christmas lights. So we've got to be out here on a specific time. So we're going to kind of move through this. So first up, I've got a question from Cheryl. And I'm going to play it for you here. Hopefully you can hear it. See, and I'll edit all this out. It'll be fine.
You played baseball, like you loved it so much, and you said, I want to just keep doing this forever and ever.
Hey, Cheryl, yeah. So as I said kind of at the top of the show, I wanted to be a baseball player forever. I wanted to be Jim Thome specifically. It didn't work out so well, but then, yeah, I absolutely went along, and at first I just thought of things I was good at. I was really talented at writing when I was in 5th, 6th grade, got good test scores in reading comprehension and stuff. So I wanted to be a sports writer. Became the editor-in-chief of my high school newspaper, and whilst I was there, I was kind of thrown into a couple of really fun opportunities. One was that our basketball team made the state tournament a couple years in a row, and I got interviewed on ESPN about our basketball team. And then I utilized that to have a couple week-long internship with one of the ESPN Cleveland broadcasters. So to be able to do that kind of transitioned me from written to looking at things more through a broadcast standpoint. I went to Ohio University for broadcast journalism, so same type of thing you'd go through to be on the news at night or to go ahead and be a PR person for a local ad agency. Similar types of skill sets, similar types of learning, just like, if you're a kindergarten teacher or you're a college professor, you're still going to be going through similar courses and get a similar degree. So there is indeed that. And I think it was my sophomore year, I had an internship in college where I broadcasted for the Southern Ohio Copperheads. And while I did that internship, I traveled on the bus for the first time, and I got to call 45 baseball games over the course of 2 months. And at that point, I said, okay, this is definitely what I want to do professionally. If I could find a way to get paid for this, then I'll be in the clear. And it took some time, but after a couple of years in minor league baseball, I found the Columbia Fireflies, and I've been here now for about 5 years.
And I'm glad you're here. So this is really something that started as a child. Like, your path for this has been long coming. And I don't know that you necessarily have the knowledge, but other sportscasts, it's going to take her a hot minute. Is it that bad?
You're good. You're good. You're good. Yeah, you're good, Kia. Go ahead. Oh, you're totally fine.
It's because I look so professional right now.
Right.
I look like I'm a journalist.
Yeah, you're good. You're totally good, Kia. You're fine. You're all good.
She's got the s'mores.
Well, she's going to be right here with the cookies and stuff like
I
that.
can see them, s'mores.
Her station normally is, she's right where the gates open because she's been doing everything with us since like 2017. So we're like, yep, just experienced person, first person that people see.
Okay. So I know that you went to school for this, but is it something that is kind of a required course of action? Like, can someone get a job doing play-by-play without having had a formal education?
Yeah, Marco Lanave with the Akron Rubber Ducks, that's AA for the Cleveland Guardians. I believe he has a degree in biochemistry, and he's the broadcaster for the Rubber Ducks. So certainly without a degree or with a degree in something else you could, but at the end of the day, it all comes down to experience. In play-by-play from the minors, you'll read some stories from Rob Ford, who's currently the Houston Astros broadcaster, and he said that his first tape was sitting in the bleachers at a Yankees game because he's from the Bronx. So he sent that tape out to a bunch of people to get his first internship. There's no one way works for every way path to minor league baseball or to broadcasting in sports specifically, but at the end of the day, getting your teeth cut in calling sports, whether that's your little brother's t-ball team or whether that's going to a Yankees game, is definitely going to be the best way to see if you've got the stuff.
Awesome. So our next question here is from Blair in Spartanburg, South Carolina. This is Blair's question.
What is the biggest challenge of being a sportscaster?
All right, Blair, it depends on how you want to look at it. I mean, getting into the field is really tough, right? So if you're looking at baseball specifically, there are 120 minor league teams. Not every minor league team has a broadcaster. And there are probably about 150 to 200 jobs circulating around Major League Baseball between, the 30 radio crews, the 30 television crews, and then the network crews that cover those games. So you're talking about in the country, there are 350 baseball play-by-play jobs. And
you've got one of them.
Right, exactly. And so what's funny about that is when you look at like what a winter meetings used to look like before they stopped in like 2019, there'd be 500 college graduates who are like, okay, I want to get my first job being a play-by-play voice in baseball. So there are plenty more people than positions available for it. And sometimes it's not even a skill aspect as much as it is a who do you know? So getting in the door is certainly a very large challenge, but then once you're already in the chair, the big challenge is staying prepared, right? Especially in today's digital information age, everyone knows everything, right? Like you can look down on your phone and you can see someone's batting average, slugging percentage, home runs, all notes on their career and stuff. Whereas 30 years ago, everyone just trusted that the voice of God was going to tell you what was right. So now people certainly have to be a little bit more prepared, so that way you don't mess up someone's story or anything like that.
So is that what you do? Like, do you have to pull out your phone and be like, this is Joe Smith who, whatever. We've talked about this before. And you've got all of the statistics. Baseball is big on statistics. They'll be like, this hasn't happened since it rained on a Tuesday in April in 76 years. Will it happen tonight? So, certainly people don't just have that in their head. Do y'all have that in your head?
There are certain things that you have in your head just because you've looked at them recently or something like that. But I mean, every day I put together a stat pack that's just got the gaudy numbers of each player on each team. And then each day I put together game notes, which are more of like the story of the Columbia Fireflies going through game by game. And it takes about an hour and a half to update those each and every day. And some of those are what's your record on a Tuesday? What's your record when you're wearing this jersey or that jersey? Or, all those silly things. So that way you can say, man, when this team wears the Blues this year, they're terrible, right? They're 10-35. Well, that doesn't happen if you don't write down what happens every time they wear the blue jerseys. So that type of stuff just comes from, again, that preparation. And for me, a lot of that comes through game notes and through statistical packs.
So that's where your writing background, I assume, is very helpful in being able to provide that color to all of that and not just be like, they win when they wear blue, they lose when they wear white.
Yeah, absolutely. Being able to be a storyteller is super important because I think anyone could talk into a mic, right? It's being able to make it interesting through the art of storytelling.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with that. So to keep things moving along here, and speaking of things that, knowing what to say, this next question is from Jenny in West Columbia. They're all loading off. She's got more. All right, so two-part question for you on that one.
I guess we'll start with the second half because that's easier. You don't get bathroom breaks. So I pre-record my pregame show, and I always go to the bathroom during my pregame show. If you got to go in between innings, you got a minute and 15 seconds. So you got to really hustle down there. The bathroom for me is, I think it's like 45 steps. So It's not super far, but you certainly have to hustle to get back before anyone notices. And then as far as like what do you say when you don't know what to say, sometimes it's okay to say you don't know, right? Especially if it's, an injury or something like that. So if you see someone all hobbled up on the ground and you're not sure exactly what happened, just wait. Just say, hey, clearly this person's hurt or this person's injured in some type of fashion, but medical staff's looking at it. We'll provide updates when we can, because the worst thing you can do is say false information, because if people aren't staying tuned in, it's obviously gonna hurt you a little bit. If you say false information, then they're talking to other people, whether that's their family, their friends, or maybe it is a news source that's tuning in and they go, oh man, prize prospect gets injured and you said it looks like he broke his foot. Well, if it turns out that he actually hit his leg and it's just a bruise and it's nothing to do with his foot, now that's incorrect information circulating. So it's okay to say you don't know. And then I know a lot of people have setups. So like Joe Buck's big setup that he uses is when someone throws a pitch, a lot of times he automatically says the batter's name. So batter swings. And that gives him enough time to, okay, I'm going to judge how far that fly ball is going to be. So if you're talking about the Freddie Freeman home run chase during the World Series and during the NLCS, right? So the time it takes him to say Freddie Freeman, that ball's already halfway to the outfield fence. So then he can really be dramatic about it. And he can say he clobbered the ball or whatever. It doesn't sound like you're taking time to judge it. Right.
Okay. So is silence an option?
Silence is a huge option. Vin Scully was maybe one of the best at using silence. After Hank Aaron hit his home run to pass Babe Ruth, he was silent for 35 seconds. Let the crowd speak for itself is what you say a lot of times. So in a lot of my calls, if it's like a walk-off home run or something, I'll say what happened, and then I'll let the guy, round second or round third, and let them go that 90 feet. So that way you can hear the crowd screaming, because the crowd screaming is going to tell people way more about excitement than me screaming by myself.
Okay, so I don't know which way I want to go with this. I've got a couple of questions from Blair still, and she asked you one of the earlier ones, and two of them kind of lead up or lend into what we're talking about here. I'm going to go ahead and go with this one. She wants to know about catchphrases. So,
Do you have any special catchphrases you like to use during your broadcast?
So the one that's kind of stuck early on is I say elevate and celebrate when someone throws a high fastball past a swinging bat. And that one's gotten a lot of people to say, like, oh, that's really cool. Tough thing is finding something unique, right? You could say touch 'em all, but that's already been done. You can say my oh my, but there's a famous call from a Seattle Mariners broadcaster about that. I could say all of Tom Hamilton's phrases that I listened to growing up, but it wouldn't be my catchphrase, right? So there are certainly times I nod to other broadcasters and kind of use their phrases, but I certainly I try to just tell the action as accurately as possible. And if something sounds really good, I'll use it multiple times. And then, like, elevate and celebrate, sometimes it becomes something that's kind of like a catchphrase.
So do you try them out? Like, one of them, you're like, you throw something out there and you're like, oh no, that did not land.
Well, you think about it, like if a guy has a good season at this level, he gets 100 strikeouts. You've got 15 pitchers on your team. So you've got 1,500 strikeouts to call. So if you're like, man, I really like how I said that, then maybe you bring it back or you try something a little bit different. And then I think it's more of like a don't force it and just develop it type thing.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I feel like we're just going back and forth real quick with these questions. So I'm sorry, listeners, for that. But we're going to go ahead and go with Blair again here.
What's the most exciting that made it so special?
So this one is really fun from back during the pandemic, right after the pandemic in 2021. We had to do our 4th of July game on June 26th because of all the weird stuff that was going on. The Fireflies had never had a walk-off home run before. And this kid from the Netherlands comes up to the plate named Daryl Collins, 19 years old, had 3 or 4 home runs that entire season, and hit a walk-off grand slam in the 10th inning to beat the Myrtle Beach Pelicans in front of the only sellout crowd that year. And it was reduced capacity because all the pandemic stuff, but it really felt like baseball returned that night. So walk-off grand slam obviously is about as exciting as it can get. It's extra innings, which means it was a close game the entire time through. But then to be able to do that, in front of a loud crowd for the first time in 600, 700 days at that point, it really was special.
That was special, and I'm so glad that that's the story that you told, because Blair was actually at that game.
That's awesome.
Because she's my sister, so that was her first game here. I brought her down to go see them and my niece Haley, and we sat right over here. And they also had a foul ball hit the outpost the foul pole, so that was a free Chick-fil-A sandwich that night. So we got a free Chick-fil-A sandwich, and then it was that walk-off home run over there. So your most exciting play, she was actually here to experience.
Well, and Blair, that is still the only ball that has hit that left foul pole off Ed Howard's bat. Rodriguez hit one off the right field foul pole this year, but those are the only 2 that have hit a foul pole in Fireflies history. So
I didn't know that. Look at that. We experienced a great game, Blair. All right, so then moving kind of right along here. Part of coming to the baseball games is, and what's fun about them to me, is the culture of a minor league game. You've got all the games in between, the mini games, the things like that. And in your book, you talk about some of that stuff. Tanya Harding, and we've had these conversations. But Cheyenne from Irmo Now has a question about the activities. They are not her favorite.
Okay.
They click, right? Okay.
Well, Cheyenne, you're a baseball traditionalist in the best way possible. 30 years ago, you would go to a game and there would be nothing, right? People got upset when you did the wave 30 years ago. But kind of as we've introduced more and more of these things as an industry, I really think it's helped people come to like it. And I think the big thing is to remember that the average person that comes to this game is a family of 3 or a family of 4. And it's really hard to drag a 6-year-old and keep them entertained for 3 hours. So if you're able to have someone throw in T-shirts to get the kid excited, if you're able to play a song and tell the kid to dance along to that song, I think it's something that really adds to their experience, and it gets families to come out more and more frequently. But I think also it doesn't have to be kid-oriented. Some of my favorite promotions were back when I was in West Virginia. We did Redneck Night. We did, what was it called? Something Monday. It was Mugshot Monday. There we go. Yeah. Where we had some guy hopped our fence and ended up stealing a bunch of stuff from the ballpark. He got arrested wearing a Power jersey at some train tracks trying to sell it off. So we allowed people to bring in mugshots to get free entry to the ballpark that next night. So I think just that creativity, having fun. It's great for kids, but it's also just great for people who might not be the biggest baseball fan. Not everyone's a season ticket member that'll go to 66 straight games, but maybe having Bluey out is a reason that a family of 4 might want to come to Sager Park and have some fun.
Right. Well, and I like the games. I mean, I got to do one on my birthday. Was that last year? Not this past birthday before.
Your 40th.
No, it wasn't.
Your 30th birthday. Yeah.
No. Not this past birthday before. Barrett got me on the list. So I got to play one of the games up on the dugouts. I got to guess the Lowe's bag.
Oh, there we go.
So that,
Yeah.
I was pretty excited because, and unfortunately I picked it first and I was like, oh, I know what this is. Like, I can feel that this is the winning bag. And, like, obviously the fun of the game, I'm supposed to be like, let's go with a different one. But I'm like, but the different one's the losing bag. So I was like, I'm going to keep it. And so then I got my chips and salsa and popcorn or, whatever's in the bags. Big winner. All right. So Blair had a question about what the ball player, who's your favorite athlete to call? Like, you just really enjoy watching them play and calling what they're doing.
That I've gotten to broadcast for it was O'Neal Cruz when I was back in West Virginia. 6'6", 18-year-old who was playing shortstop. Kind of just a freak of nature athlete. He got traded from the Dodgers to the Pittsburgh Pirates at the trade deadline. The Pirates have a rule where if you haven't gotten major league playing time, you kind of have to look like you play for the Yankees, so you can't have the long hair, you can't have the beard or anything like that. And he came from the Dodger system, so he had these long dreads and didn't speak any English and showed up first day to batting practice. And he, in West Virginia, it would be like hitting a home run over that right field fence right there. But then there was a street, and he hit it over the street, and then he hit it to a parking lot where there was a CVS, and it was 7 rows deep into the parking lot. One of my game days was out there. I'm sitting on the phone, almost got hit by it. And
holy cow.
He called me and was like, who hit that ball? There's no way. That had to be 500 feet. And it was O'Neal Cruz. And he had a flair for when you needed something to happen, he made it happen. Super strong arm. In fact, now that he's in the majors, we can measure how strong it is. This last year, he had 2 of the strongest StatCast throws for a fielder in all of Major League Baseball and has had some of the best exit velocities. So it wasn't just like seeing it at the single A level with this 18, 19-year-old. It was now watching him in the majors going, man, this kid grew up and is still outperforming everyone else.
That's really neat. So in a dream world where, it's not reality, if you could pick a player that you could call their game for, like you could call anybody that you wanted, past, present, doesn't matter, who would it be?
That'd be tough. A couple would pop off pretty quickly. I think it'd be really cool to see Satchel Paige in his prime before he got to get integrated. Fantastic pitcher, ended up pitching for the Cleveland Indians back in the 40s, but really didn't start pitching in the majors until he was well past his prime because of segregation. So I think it'd be really cool to be able to call him in an ideal world where baseball was together, not segregated, in his prime, being able to strike out guys like a Babe Ruth or strike out like a Mickey Mantle. That way you could say, hey, this guy really was one of the best pitchers of all time. Jim Thome would be really cool just because he was my childhood idol growing up. And then Francisco Lindor kind of really got me into baseball. The Indians drafted him my senior year of high school in the first round. So then when I was in college, whenever he made it to a new team, I would make it my goal to visit that team. So they started off in Mahoning Valley in short season, and I went to Mahoning Valley for a game so I could see him. Then Lake County was only 10 minutes from my house, so I went there. And then when I made it up to Akron, it was 45 minutes from my house, so I went there and got to see him at each step until he made it to Cleveland. And then I started working in minor league baseball 2 or 3 years after that. So
That's really neat. So you already talked about the competition for broadcasters and that it's a competitive job market. And is it like a job market though? So can you be traded to a different team? Or is it literally you just go and apply someplace and that's where you work, and then at the end you're like, all right, here's my 2 weeks notice, I'm gonna go work at this other place. Do you get poached? Is it like a job, like in the traditional sense, or is it more like being in the world of athletics?
both. So there have been broadcasters who have been traded before. That would not happen on like a minor league team today with the way that it's set up, but I can't remember the guy's name, but some guy in like the 50s was traded for an actual player. Only broadcaster to be traded for an actual player. So that has happened. It wouldn't happen in 2024. But it is similar to a job market. I apply. I've had people try to poach me before. I'm not going to say their team names publicly, but I've certainly had people say, hey, this offer's open if you'd like to leave X spot or Y spot. And back when winter meetings was a lot more popular prior to 2020, it was kind of like a 4-day Hunger Games. They used to just fly everyone in. So every major league team and every minor league team had executives out there. And
it was the Athletics, right?
yes. So they would have all these people kind of fly into Orlando or Nashville or DC or Vegas or whatever. And for 4 days, every job opening that could be made public would be made public, and all these people would interview against each other. And I think when I got my Hagerstown, Maryland job, my interview was 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. in a sports book, and we had some beers. Or
I was very concerned for you at 2 a.m., but if it's over a beer, it's fine.
yeah. And then I've had a job interview at 9 a.m. where they had it at a bar and you had some beers. Winter meetings, there just wasn't a time. It's like vacation
Beers
time.
all day long.
Yeah.
Got it.
Or like in DC, I remember this guy invited me to an oyster bar for an interview, and I went to the wrong oyster bar, and then I went to another one, and he was sitting there, and he was like, okay, well, here's where we're at from like a drinks perspective. He's like, you got to play catch up. So it was almost like doing the airport test, where people are like, okay, not only does your real work, not only does your resume work for me, but we work 15-hour days in the summer a lot of times. So is this going to be someone that I can enjoy hanging around when we've got 6 straight days in the summer and we're here from 10 a.m. until 10,
Right.
11 p.m.? Or is this going to be a stick in the mud?
So you're not a stick in the mud.
Hopefully not.
He's not a stick in the mud. I've known John for a couple years now. All right, so I know we're getting close on time. I'm going to start wrapping this up. We started out kind of talking about where sports broadcasting started. Where is it going?
That's a great question. With a lot of the regional sports networks going bankrupt and seeing deals like the Amazon deal for Thursday Night Football have a ton of success, I certainly envision it being on streaming more, but then how do they monetize that is going to be a fantastic question. You're seeing a lot more physically branded things now. So the baseball helmets that said Strauss during the playoffs, like that was, from what I understand, a very, very lucrative partnership deal. But if you look at baseball in like 1950, you made money off of hot dogs and beers. Today, in-park revenue is less than 30% of a baseball team's total revenue. Most of that revenue comes from social and broadcast rights. So the Yankees being able to sign guys like Aaron Judge to super long contracts, or wherever Juan Soto ends up signing this offseason, that's probably going to be because of a team's broadcast revenue, or because of something cool they've done on social that's allowed them to monetize social a little bit better through their digital revenues. So it's less about like, hey, let's make sure we've got 35,000 people in the park tonight spending $75 on a ticket and $50 on whatever, and more on, hey, can we have a $300 million broadcast deal this year? So the real thing about it is when you're switching from cable and that guaranteed money, because cable packages work where, if you have an $80 cable bill, $2 of that's going towards CBS, and then CBS pays the NFL $1 of that to guarantee their
Right.
games or whatever. So now when you've got streaming services, they're probably going to be paying per event. Is that going to be more lucrative or less lucrative is the real question.
Let me give that a second.
Yeah, no worries at all. And you've got plenty of time, so don't feel stressed.
Well, I know that we need it.
Yeah, because the gates will open at 6, and it took you 10 minutes.
Will they be in line like when we were out there?
The line won't be a big deal, so I wouldn't worry too much.
Like on a
about
free Friday.
it. Fair enough.
While y'all were talking.
Yeah, yeah. So you're good. Don't worry. Don't worry too much about the time or anything.
Oh, really? Well, that's moving through a lot faster than we needed to be moving then. Well, then the good part about that is that we are now kind of to the unscripted part. So we talked about the fact that you probably won't be traded. Probably
won't.
doesn't happen at this level.
Unless I really fall off, well, whatever the kid from The Rookie did, right? If I break my arm and start throwing 99, maybe I get traded to the Yankees.
We'll keep an eye out for that. So what does a future look like? So you started at the single A level. We're here at single A. Before this, you were at single A.
Yeah.
Do you move up, or is this good for you personally as a sports broadcaster? Are there ambitions of going up to different levels the same way as a minor league player would want to go up to, up the ranks and get to the show? Is that the same thing for someone like you?
Yeah, the same and different, right? So the same of the higher you go, the more people are going to be watching, the larger market it typically is, right? Like Indianapolis is certainly a larger market than Columbia, right? So, or even Charlotte, since that's the closest AAA team to here. So there's always the want for more people to be watching you, and obviously if there's more stuff being seen, then there's more money in it and stuff like that. So that's obviously something that I think everyone strives to do, but it's got to be the right move and it's got to make sense. You know, when I first broke into minor league baseball, I said I'd give myself 4 years to get a full-time job with benefits. And the rationale behind that was I was 23 years old, so that 4-year mark was when I would have to start paying for my own insurance, if it wasn't for an employer picking it up. And for the kids listening at home, I had to look it up because it was close. It's like $600 a month, so you certainly want to find an employer to help you pay for that. But when I was kind of going through all that stuff, I said, okay, how am I going to break in? First, I'm going to get just any internship. So 2017 was my first year in baseball, but I was a video production intern. 2018 was, I said I want a broadcast-specific internship, right? And at any point, if I didn't hit these goals, I was saying, okay, maybe it's time to look back. I remember, like, straight out of college, I had a couple talk radio job offers. I had an MMJ job offer, but I specifically wanted to try the baseball thing. So I said, okay, let's try and get through and get to this broadcast-specific internship, which I got after having the foot in the door in West Virginia. So that's why I spent 2 years there. Then I said, okay, well, I've learned for 2 years. It's time to see if I can run the show by myself. So I went from a team that drew like 1,500 a night, 1,600 a night to the Hagerstown Suns, who no longer exist. They drew like 150 a night. And so a lot of quiet ballparks, but fantastic staff there. You know, it was just the difference between Columbia and Hagerstown is money in, right? So it's, you know, Columbia has 30 front office staff members who are all making sales calls or who are all doing marketing initiatives to make things really fun here. Hagerstown had 5. So you're just not able to pour as much effort in every game. So there are some games where, you know, 30 people come out and you're, you know, calling a game and more people are listening on the radio by far than are physically in the stands. So, you know, when I was in Hagerstown, I knew it was a temporary thing. I was happy I had a #1 job. I thought I did a really good job there. And I said, okay, now I need to find a market that I can be in for a while. And that's when Columbia came. Right in time for a worldwide pandemic. So I moved to Columbia.
Terrible time, by the way, to enter the job market.
So I moved to Columbia in February of 2020, and the world shut down like 2 weeks later. Fortunately, we have a fantastic ownership group, have a fantastic leadership team here that really helped us out throughout the pandemic, and we made sure that everyone was, you know, going to make it through the pandemic together. And you know, I think when I first got here, I said 5 to 7 years was kind of where I was looking at before I really wanted to look at those AA, AAA, and you know, maybe one day down the road, major league opportunities. And you know, it's one of those things where I'm really comfortable here. I've got a great setup. I've got, you know, a ballpark that draws, so it's always exciting to be here. But you know, if the right opportunity were to come along, it'd be really hard to say no.
Right. So, what's a team that you would never want to call for? Like, just for your own personal, like, so for me, obviously, it'd be the Cardinals. But, but like, I just don't think I could do it. But is there any team that you're just like, no, totally not out? If they were like, we will give you $6 million to call these games.
So what's funny is I feel like some of the Carolina League rivalries for me hit home more than the Major League rivalries. So like Cleveland, you know, they ran the AL Central for the first 15 years of my life, and Detroit was really bad for a while, and Minnesota was really bad for a while, and the White Sox are still really bad, and the Royals go up and down. So Cleveland doesn't have that true rival like you've got Yankees, Red Sox, or Dodgers, Giants, right? So there's no baseball team I grew up hating. And I think now I honestly watch a lot of baseball, and I'm looking for guys that I've called before, wherever they may be. Because it's not just Pittsburgh, Washington, and Kansas City, right? Like Walter Pennington got traded to the Texas Rangers this year. So, you know, like if I can see one of my former guys playing at the major league level, and it's, you know, 9 o'clock at night, Fireflies are done, I'll pop it on MLB TV and, you know, root for that guy specifically. So I don't think I have like a major league team that I wouldn't call for, but I think there are certainly some like minor league situations where I just wouldn't go there. You know, there have been a couple places that have offered me a gig where it's just like, man, that would be so much more difficult than what I have currently in Columbia.
So, guys, John wrote this book called Play by Play from the Minors. We talked about it a little bit at the beginning. I have started reading it. Not this copy, though. This is a copy that is a giveaway for one of you listeners. We'll post details on social media and everything. It is signed Look at that. Ah,
Yay.
and it didn't even get signed today. This got signed on December 7th of 2023 because I bought this at your book signing at All Good Books. And just, we never have done this episode yet. Anyway, so I've got it here. But in this, John profiles, how many? 7?
13.
Oh, okay. 13 different broadcasters. So tell us a little bit about this before we close out tonight.
Yeah, this was my big pandemic project. I moved across the country and I was told we were going to shelter in place for, 3 weeks was the original
2
thing?
weeks or something, yeah.
And so I said, sweet, in 3 weeks I'm going to visit as many parks around Columbia that I can. I'm going to go camping a couple times and see what happens. And then, after a couple months of that, I had visited all the close places to visit. I had hiked wherever I could hike, and I said, okay, I got to figure out something to keep myself busy, something that's challenging. And I looked at the AAA level, and I believe it was 7 AAA broadcasters out of the 30 had written a book. So I said, that might be a cool thing to do. And I obviously know a lot of broadcasters, but I wanted to be able to network a little bit more while we were all kind of staying stationary. So I started off and I talked to a couple people I knew, and then I asked them if they knew of anyone they thought would be someone that would be a good fit to talk and tell some stories. And I think it was only 3 or 4 months of actually writing the book. Then it was finding a publisher and editing the book, and then the publisher wanted me to add 2 more chapters and 10,000 more words, so it was rewriting and starting to get through that process again, and then it finally got published in 2023.
Well, for any of you guys who are sports fans, it reads really easily. You are a good writer, so good job on that. I'm not, like I said, I'm not all the way through it since 2023. I don't know what happened. But anyhow, so it does read really easily. It's very interesting. You hear some really neat stories in here. And so if you're a lucky winner, then I will get this to you. If you're not, then you can pick it up on Amazon.
Amazon, McFarland Books, Barnes & Noble online, Books A Million online. So plenty of different options depending on if you're a member of any of those, and you get a special discount. And I guess up until December 4th, there is a code that you can use at McFarland Books that'll give you 25% off. So that's really cool.
Well, we'll post this on social, but not in the episode because I'm pretty sure it comes out after that.
Okay, fair enough, fair enough.
All right. So I really appreciate you doing this with me. I know that we've talked about doing it for a hot minute now. And obviously I love being out here at Cyber Park. I'm not a full season member, but I'm a partial season member. And then I always pick up extra tickets throughout the season because I love being here. It makes me happy. All my stress melts away. I love watching games. We sit down there in the first row right behind home plate. Barrett whistles up at John, who sits up in the booth behind us. But I love being here, and I'm so glad that y'all made your acquaintanceship so that we can make our acquaintanceship. And then, now we're friends.
Absolutely.
Who bowl together on Tuesdays. But it's a fun place to be, and you have a very cool job. So I'm pretty jealous of that. But we're going to go ahead and close out for tonight. Is there anything else that we didn't touch on that you kind of hope that we would, or anything else that you'd like to say?
Well, first, just thanks so much for having me. And for those of you who might not be able to go to a Fireflies game but still want to see Amii, you can certainly tune into our broadcast, and she's always available.
That's true. You can
when
see
they
me.
sing about her. So you can check out the Fireflies' favorite
right?
podcaster. Yeah, you would hear me while doing that. So you can check out the Fireflies, see your favorite podcaster. It all works.
Yeah. All right. Well, then that is all I've got. I'm going to have you do me a favor.
Yeah.
I'm going to have you use your broadcaster voice, and I'm going to have you read my outro.
Okay.
So you can scroll or whatever, just right there.
The top one?
It's the whole thing.
The Welcome to Wonderland podcast is copyrighted by Amii Bland and is part of Big Media. This podcast was recorded at the 2016 Minor League Ballpark of the Year and home of the Columbia Fireflies, Segra Park in famously hot downtown Columbia, South Carolina. Any thoughts or opinions expressed as a part of this production are those of the hostess, unless otherwise indicated. Subscribe to this podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Please follow, like, and share this podcast. Find Welcome to Wonderland on Facebook at Welcome to Wonderland the Podcast, and on X, the app formerly known as Twitter, at Wonderland_pod. Check out behind-the-scenes moments and other videos on TikTok at WonderlandPod. And finally, check out pictures, additional information, and go further down the rabbit hole on our website at www.www.wonderland.pod. WTWLpod.com. To submit corrections, additional information, or requests for the episodes, please email the hostess at welcometowonderlandthepod@gmail.com.
I can't even do that, and I read it every single time. He didn't stutter on a gnat flew in my eye. But like I stutter, I'm like, and you're like, I've never seen this text before in my life, but I'm just going to do it flawlessly. I guess this is what you do for a living. Whatever.
You did the one thing I have to ask people to do all the time: separate the sentences by like enters, because some people just give you like a block
that's too
of
hard to
text
read.
and then you always get lost.
Yeah.